See yourself?
And we're back. I'm your host, BKP, and I'm joined now with Margaret Williamson is with us. She is a candidate, Republican candidate for Georgia House Seat District 7. Margaret, how are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you, Brian?
Can I call you Margaret?
Of course. That's what you've been calling me all these years.
That's what I was going to say. It might be hard. To Margaret, you are running for Georgia House seat. Let's just start here, District 7.
Correct.
Why?
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 That's interesting question, and it's been posed to me a number of times, and I've had a lot of time to reflect on it, but basically I feel that the 7th District has not been represented the way it should be. And so, I've been following legislation for quite a while, see the bills that are passed and the bills that aren't passed, have sat in on committee meetings and see how that all goes, and I've just become very frustrated and disturbed that the real needs of the district are not being met.
Okay, now let's go with the real needs of the district. One, let me just add, have you ever run for a public office before?
No, I haven't.
I just asked the question, and somebody will say, well, this is being redundant when I just asked you why you were running, but you've never run for public office before. So what are some of the things that just motivated you to say, I'm stepping out? I've read your letter. You tell voters your grandmother, 15, did I get that right?
Yep, 15.
15 grandchildren, retired. Okay,
yes.
So I read your letter. So what motivated you to get out? You've never run for office and say, I want to do this now, and it's important to do it now.
Well, as I said, I've been involved for quite a while. We founded the Tea Party here in Gilmer County a number of years ago, and so we've been tracking legislation and have had a real concern for not just my children and my grandchildren, but all the children and the working people in the district. Finally, I guess the straw that broke the camel's back was when I hear that we have conservative representation. And to me, conservative means less government, less taxes, a free market economy, religious freedom. Those are not being represented in the Gold Dome by our representative. We can't get a RFRA bill. And that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back right there, because David Ralston is on record to saying to the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce that as long as he is Speaker of the House, there will never be a RFRA bill, a religious freedom bill.
And why do you think that? Why do you think he would tell the Chamber of Commerce that? And why do you think the House is not come through with a religious because of him directly? Because you bring up him, he is the current representative of the 7th District and also the House of Representatives Speaker. So, what makes you think that cannot get passed?
Well, as I said, the Metro Chamber of Commerce, they are the ones that are contributed greatly to his campaign, and they do not want a RFRA bill.
What if? Let me ask you this. Let me go this direction, because there's kindly two things here. There is the Georgia Speaker of the House, and also there's the representative of the 7th District.
Correct.
Let's stay focused on the 7th District.
Okay.
Okay. What in the 7th District do you feel the citizens are not being represented in the 7th District? What is Gilmer, Fannin, and a portion of Dawson County missing today that you would like to represent that you don't feel they're getting the representation now?
Well, I would go back to the RFRA bill, because there's about 80% of North Georgia has these conservative values that are being challenged by not having a RFRA bill. I have spoken to a number of people who are in certain businesses, and they are concerned about their religious freedom. We've allowed the media to direct the narrative on all of that. But Brian, would you go to a Jewish butcher and have him prepare your ham for Easter Sunday celebration?
No.
So then, but what if you did? If you were really inclined to want to cause a problem, go to that Jewish butcher. And when he says, no, it's against my religious belief to touch pork, and then you go back and sue him because, he's not providing you with a ham on Easter Sunday?
Well, I understand, and I think most of the viewers will understand where you're going with that. But that is a single issue, and
yes, it is.
I don't mean to call it a single issue. So let me stay in the 7th district for a minute, because we're going to stay focused on why you would like to represent the people of this district. There has been some laws passed that have great benefit in the state of Georgia to wineries.
Yes.
And wineries are exploding economically in the North Georgia area.
They are.
There has been some laws passed that benefit craft breweries.
Correct.
And craft small breweries are benefiting, and there's been an explosion in that business in North Georgia. There has been several things. For example, just this week, a couple years ago, and I know our students here in rural Georgia love to be where we can get dual enrollment.
Right.
And so there's several opportunities now. A couple years ago, 3 or 4 maybe, if that long, a campus for University of North Georgia, a satellite campus in Blue Ridge,
right,
now is going to have $5.5 million to build a brick and mortar standalone facility in Blue Ridge. So with some of those things, why do you feel the citizens should make a change with you?
Okay, you look at the population of Fannin County and Gilmer County, and the portion of Dawson County is really hard to figure out what that is. The boundaries are crazy to work with. But, you've got how many thousand people in Gilmer County? It's upward to probably 40,000 now, depending on where you look. And then Fannin County is just a little less than that, probably around 30,000. So how many of those people benefit from the craft beer, the wineries, the school? And I'm very happy that we have that because, our children were having to travel a greater distance to do that. So those are great things, and they do help the economy. But what about other things that really need to be addressed? I mean, I'm going out there talking to people. There's a mental health issue in our district. Well, it's all over Georgia, but did you know that in Fannin County ranks number 2 in the state for opioid overdose and suicides? In the last 10 years, from the ages of 10 to 17, almost 40% of all those deaths have come from opioid overdose and suicide. 40%. We rank number 2 in the state. That it's about 38, 39%. The state average is only around 19%. We have a real crisis. When I talk to people in Fannin County, they talk about the fact that they cannot get the necessary help that they need for their children who are suffering from depression, whether it's from bullying, whatever the source. And they have no resources to actually have that disease dealt with. We have no long-term stays except for private ones. You go in, they put their child into an emergency room, and 3 days later they're out again with the same problem. So, that is a real issue in North Georgia. We have a lot of retired teachers. I heard you talking earlier about the pension plans for teachers. The TRS, the Teachers Retirement System, is very much in jeopardy. And I don't even think that the actual teachers associations are even letting their retired people know about it. You know that the Georgia pension plan for teachers has a $2 billion unfunded liability. $1.1 billion of that is debt service because they have been borrowing to keep that afloat. Now, whether you agree or not with the fixed benefit program for teachers, that was a promise made by the state. Right now, they have about they are underwater $18 billion. Now, we have a saying in our family, and you probably do too, that never spend money in anticipation of projected income. So the state pension fund, or for the teachers, they were basing all of their spending on a 7.5% return on investment. That's unrealistic. That is totally unrealistic. So that's why they're $18 billion underwater. They have negative amortization for their fund. And so teachers are going to feel that at some time. And the $1.1 billion for debt service, accompanying that is $900 million in medical health insurance that they don't have the money to pay for. So I'm already hearing from teachers retired teachers, that their pension plan is not what they anticipated it to be, and now they're having to pay more for health care. And the counties are also having to contribute to that.
Well, I can understand that the teachers, and that's another subject in itself, the teachers are promised, and they've been promised by politicians for years on what their plan would be. And obviously now we're hitting a crossroad of saying, well, we don't know if we can keep our promise. And that's a national issue that we're taking on. But let me go back to that with the teachers. About 60% of the population of both counties, Gilmer and Fannin, and the same in Dawson County, 60% are employed by somewhere in the school system. So this affects, yes, I'm talking about retired, but current teachers. And, a lot of times, students coming out of college anticipating a career as an educator, they look at the salary that they get as a teacher versus what they possibly could get in the in the private sector. And the fixed benefit plan was a great attraction to them. And now that's not even going to be offered. It's probably going to go to a 401k, which is like what everybody else has. But how is that going to affect hiring teachers? Well, I want to go back to something that you said, because I do know that the opiate crisis is a national crisis, and in North Georgia, we're particularly hard hit in North Georgia, and I can understand that. Rural America,
yes.
Okay, very hard hit, and I understand the statistics and aware of what you brought up in Fannin County, along with Gilmer and portions of Dawson. But the opiate crisis, what could you do? And I know the president just signed a budget, and the state has, in this year's budget, made some changes to or increased funding for treatment. What could you do as the representative on some of these particular subjects that you've brought up this morning? What's not being done? What could you do?
Well, back in 2008, George Bush signed into law a bill that was actually pretty much a bipartisan. Ironically, though, the sponsors of that bill, gosh, I've already forgotten who, but they were Democrats. But George Bush, this is a time when the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate, but George Bush was president. But he signed that into law, and what it is supposed to do is force insurance companies to have parity between what they provide in funding for surgical and medical needs and mental health. Unfortunately, that bill didn't have a lot of teeth to enforce it. So Obama, we know how we feel about Obamacare, but they did add on to that. They increased it, but still, no teeth. So Georgia, I would work with others to offer a bill, to sponsor a bill that would actually ensure that the health insurance companies meet what's required in that bill, that federal bill. We could enact a bill that would mirror that in the state, and they would have to provide for mental health care. We have a lot of hospitals that have closed. Why not some, I hate to use the word institution because we automatically think of Milledgeville or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know. But I mean, smaller hospitals, now unfortunately our hospital is closed, but smaller hospitals that would be easier to monitor and have them for long-term stay, just like the private ones, where you could actually help these kids, not just kids. I mean, there are adults too that have issues. Depression is very predominant in seniors, retired people. So it could meet a need on a local basis, not having to drive down to Atlanta and pay a lot of money in these private places. So that's one thing. I think that would be a very good way to address some of the needs. But there's proposals to have teachers be trained so that they can recognize mental illness. Parents have a good job of doing that. They can tell when their child is depressed and when their child, if they have the education, be aware. I mean, we went through that whole drug awareness program. So that would be one thing that I would think about doing. But there are a lot of associations in the state of Georgia that have been working together with the criminal system, the criminal justice, teenagers being arrested for drug and alcohol problems, and finding out too that they have some kind of a mental disorder. And we shouldn't be ashamed to say that. You don't mind saying that my child has diabetes or my child has a different problem. Why not be transparent about mental illness as well?
Well, Margaret, you know me well enough that I don't believe in going around certain subjects. I believe in being direct on it, and I think you know that as well as I know you and how direct you can be.
Yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not identifying you, but you know.
Yes, that's okay.
Let's just go straight to it. Okay. David Ralston is the current representative of the 7th District, but also is the Speaker of the House of the state of Georgia. Not only if you would be elected, then there's so many districts out there that may want the speakership in their district. Why should this district, just tell us exactly, why should this district vote for you to be their representative, knowing that you wouldn't go to Atlanta and be Speaker of the House, and why would they lose that
edge?
Whatever you want to call that, okay? Why would they? Tell us that.
Okay, you talked about this, trying to remember what exactly, it was the Council on Rural Development. The Rural Georgia Study Committee. Now,
yes, Rural Georgia Study Committee.
Okay,
yes.
You know, we're kind of like led to believe that we're rural Georgia. The majority of Georgia is rural. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You've got Metro Atlanta and the counties around there, but you've got a lot of needs in South Georgia, a lot of needs up in North Georgia. So the council that was formed by the Speaker. Basically, I know he says that they had a meeting in Georgia, or in LJ. Were you invited?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. But basically, that council that met down in Milledgeville was lawyers, lobbyists, and legislators. I don't know what input they had from the regular folk, we the people. But the things that came out of that, you mentioned the North Georgia campus, the North Georgia College campus, and $5.5 million. That's only to construct. And I'm glad, I'm happy to see that. That's only to construct that building. And I don't know, $5.5 million doesn't go a long way these days in construction. Building costs are up 20% in North Georgia over the past 10 years. So, but Fannin will have to buy the property, correct?
Correct.
And then they're going to have to provide all of the materials, the desks, computers, all of those things. That's going to end up costing the county more than they may be anticipating spending. So how involved was Fannin County in all of that? Just asking. I'm not sure. Do you know that?
No, I don't. I do know the $5.5 million is for construction, but the property and the logistics leading up to construction, the campus, the college is responsible for that.
Okay, so you have this new campus and it's wonderful. We have a wonderful technical school up there, but in the past 10 years, tuition to colleges has risen 75%. Tuition to technical schools has gone up 100%. Even with Hope Scholarship, kids are coming out of there with debt, $20,000 to $40,000 from loans for education. There's less funding now to the university system than there was before. Where's all that money going? That's one question I would really ask. If Georgia has a $26 billion budget this year, that's not even including federal money, but over half of that goes to education. 13 billion plus goes to education. And yet, you talk to teachers about what they're getting. I mean, I'm with the Optimist Club. Every September or August before school starts, we have the bus program so that we can give to the teachers paper towels, hand sanitizers, notebooks, all those things that children need. And why are we having to do that for the teachers? I'm happy to do it. I participated in it every year. But why isn't the school providing those things? They're necessities. Where's the money going for education? We rank number 34. Now that may have come up a bit, but 34 in the nation for our output. And it's not because the teachers aren't good teachers. We have great teachers here. My daughter, Mary Melissa,
yes,
is head of the science department here and the biology teacher, honors biology. So, now she will say they don't want for anything as far as being able to order for the classroom as supplies, but not the paper towels and all that. The needs are not being funded. Here in Gilmer County, now you know that we have a $4.4 million debt that we have to pay every year on those revenue bonds that came out of that building authority. We will be paying $4.4 million until 2032. And at that time, we will then own the courthouse, the fire stations, the library. Right now, that's held by the building authority, which has changed. Again, going back to that anticipated revenue, they expected that they were going to have all these sales tax money coming in. And when it didn't happen, after the what do they call it in Atlanta, the Great Recession, we didn't have that money. And so now we have $4.4 million of debt every year that we have to pay. We could have had, we could have built a stadium, we could have had a performing arts center, we could even have an aquatic center, which would benefit everybody in the county, seniors, swimming, an indoor track, a lot of things that could have been done with that $4.4 million. Now, why do we have that debt? Where'd that come from?
I understand the building authority. I understand how it was created, but what say you?
Well, David Ralston, before he was speaker, had a bill passed in the House that created the building authority. $4.4 million we will be paying every year until 2032.
But, is that not the is that not, and let me see how to frame this, is that not like one of the jobs of a representative? Is there not in other districts all across the state every year, if you look at legislation and it gets a little boring, there's water authorities, building authorities, and representatives are asked by their local commission base or whoever the authority is to take that and get it done for them. Is that not just a formality? And I'm not making light of it because, you know, in the interest of transparency, I live in the county. In the interest of transparency, I live in the district, and I'm a voter in the district where you're running. So that being said, you know, I have studied the building authority, and I think you know that, and I know the debt we're discussing. So I don't want to act like the viewers out there, I don't know what you're talking about, but saying that, is that not if a county came to you or Fannin came to you and said, hey, we want to create a water authority, which we already know we have them, but I'm going to use a hypothetical. So if hypothetically Representative Margaret Williamson of the 7th District and a city in your district, a commission in your district says, we want to create this authority, that authority, or so on, what say you? What would you do as far as, because you brought that up, so what would you do as far as testing to see if it met what you would take to Atlanta and represent?
Well, it's like anything. You have to, I think you have to include your citizens in that process. Okay, this was pretty much, most people are unaware that the building authority even exists. And I understand this is a common practice, but unlimited authority was given to 3 individuals. And the courthouse, they had already voted, the people in the district had already voted that they did not want to take on the debt of a new courthouse. So this was a workaround, in my opinion.
Creating the authority, you say, allowed them to borrow the money without the voters' input.
Yes, and they.
I mean, I'm not answering the question for you, but is that correct?
Yes, and so when you have this happen, and voters have already voted. It wasn't that they didn't want a courthouse. I mean, it was a tragedy when Mr. Queen fell down those stairways. You know, that was terrible. But could there have been done repairs for at least until they had money to pay for a courthouse? Did it have to be a Taj Mahal? Although it's not. It's really a very nice courthouse. But look in the neighboring counties that have had new courthouses. They have not got the debt that we have.
Well, we're going to have you. We're going to have you back multiple times before the election, and we also, anytime Mr. Ralston would like to come in, so we're going to have you back. We do have a hard 9 o'clock break. I don't know exactly where we're at, but I want to ask you this question, and I ask all candidates this because they will talk about why they are running, but I ask a little different. Why should the other person not have the job? And before you answer that, when a candidate, and this is for everybody out there, when you go and qualify, you've decided the other person shouldn't have the job. So that is actually a valid question I think I asked. So why do you think Mr. Ralston should not have the job?
He has not been transparent with the voters in the 7th District. You know, what I would do differently during session, now I know he's a busy man because he's speaker, but I would be here every Saturday morning during session. I would alternate between the different counties. I would be there to answer questions, to let them know what legislation is in the process of being voted on, where it is in the committees, whether it's subcommittee, committeeing, whatever it's in. And I would listen to their feedback, and I would tell them pretty much how I would vote on this particular bill, and I would give them the reason why, and I would tell them how it would benefit them, or I won't vote for it because I feel that it's going to be, it would be detrimental to have that for this area. I would be representing them, the people in the district, and not the Chamber of Commerce in Metro Atlanta. And that's basically the way I see it, and it's the way a lot of people see it. They do not feel that they have the representation. They don't trust. That, that's nationwide too, the trust part. But my cell phone would be available to all people, just not to a few. They would be able to call me. I would answer it. I will send an email out every week with what is happening in the state, and not just during session, but for the whole year, because there's always things going on that legislators are involved in. And I would let the people know, and I want their feedback. How do you feel about this? The local hospital issue, and I talked to you about that a couple of months ago, where it's like we've been given a gift that we have this micro hospital, but in reality, we have lost our hospital. That certificate of need is still live, but the chances of us having a hospital here, a real hospital, it's way far in the distance. And we had private money that wanted to acquire that certificate of need and build a hospital here, and we're denied that process.
Well, denied the process. What's wrong with what? And I want to stay focused on the citizens of the 7th. What's wrong with the medical facility that the citizens of Gilmer County that predominantly use it? It's in Gilmer County down here. Mm-hmm. And North Georgia Medical Facility, the hospital, did close.
Right.
What's wrong with the current healthcare system and facility that's in place in Gilmer County today? Was there not kindly a trade up on services?
It depends on who you talk to. What we basically have is an emergency room. You can call it anything you want. You can call it a micro hospital. It is an emergency room. And the only purpose of that facility is to stabilize and move the patient on as needed or send them home. Okay? Fannin County, their people that need services go to the Fannin County Hospital, but the whole part of southern Fannin County would have been able to use our facility as well, so it affects them. The new facility would have been on 515. It would not be in the city here. So you think about, okay, you and I, it would be very easy for us to go to Piedmont Mountainside. Piedmont Mountainside's already having problems with overcrowding. They're talking about building or adding on. So then they take you to Piedmont downtown, completely bypassing Northside Hospital in Canton. Now, if you want to go to Canton, you can, but you're going to pay for that ambulance ride. If you go to Piedmont, you don't. So you and I would have the ability to go down there and stay with our family member. A lot of the people in Gilmer County and Fannin County don't have that luxury. They cannot take time to drive into the city. A lot of them don't even venture into the big city. So those people are being left behind. Donald Trump calls them the forgotten man. That's what we have, the forgotten man, woman, child.
Well, I tell you what, let's do this. We'll have you back again. You're local here in the area, so you're able to come in the studio. We'll have you back again. We've got maybe 6-7 weeks, and then early voting starts the end of this month, April
30th.
April 30th, and then May 22nd is primary. So we got several more weeks, and we can have you in and continue on these issues. I want to close with asking you: Do you feel that losing the district losing the speaker would hurt economically in this area if, and I don't want to say just, that's not even a good word, but if they just had a representative, what's the upside of that versus losing the speaker? Would it hurt economically, or would you feel that people would be better represented if they just had a representative?
Well, that's obviously what I feel.
Okay.
Just the better representation, the transparency in knowing what's going on. The economy, look, we have a great county, the district. We have natural resources here that attract people. We need better jobs, better paying jobs to boost our own standard of living and encourage people to come. We need better businesses coming in that pay more money. All of those things we need to work on. But you have to be here and you have to talk to the people. You have to know what they need. Poverty level is still, we are at our counties, both Fannin and Gilmer, and part of Dawson, we have a really high poverty rate. But, okay, I know that you're on a hard break.
No,
But, we need to address that. And we need, and other things about the high-speed internet. Different bills, too, that have been passed. Can I mention one of them?
Go ahead.
Okay. One of the bills that was just currently passed, Rusty Paul, he's the mayor of Sandy Springs.
Mm-hmm.
Sandy Springs made a decision for their city that any construction over 3 stories had to be done using concrete and steel, over 3 stories. That was in their building code. And the purpose of that was, a lot of it was about insurance, having insurance on these buildings, fire, tornadoes, all of that. So that was a conclusion that they came to on their studies. A bill was passed from the House, sponsored in the House and passed, that supersedes the authority of the building code in the city of Sandy Springs. Not just Sandy Springs, that is a particular one, anywhere in the state of Georgia. Anywhere. So we could, in our counties, Fannin, Gilmer, we could establish a building code and then the state come in and tell us, no, you can't do it that way, no matter what your reasons were. Now, why would they do that?
I don't know. I could continue because I do. No, I enjoy discussing politics, legislation. I don't know what's wrong with me, but and political races. But I figure you probably have a close that you wanted to a statement maybe or something you wanted to close with, and if you did and do, now is the time. So.
Okay. Well, you can visit my Facebook page, and it's Williamson for Georgia State House, District 7. I do have a website as well, and that is votewilliamson2018.com. And I try to keep the Facebook current, posting legislation, things that I'm concerned about. My phone number, 706-273-9163. Call me if you have any questions. And I ask for your vote on, May 22nd is primary day. Primaries are very important. I would ask you to get out and vote, exercise that privilege that you have, and vote Margaret Williamson for Georgia State House, District 7.
Thank you, Margaret. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, are you having a lot of questions concerning tax confusion, state tax changes, federal tax changes? We have somebody we're going to talk to about that as soon as we return. Take us to break, Amanda.